And I'd say one issue that hasn't figured hugely in this election is international relations, because it doesn't. Domestic New Zealand elections are seldom decided on our international policies. And it would seem to me that when it comes to one of the biggest events happening in the world, most concerning international events, there seems to be a certain amount of political unanimity on it, and that is the war in Ukraine fighting back against an invasion and an unprovoked attack by Russia and by Vladimir Putin. And of course, the result of that, New Zealand has so far limited itself to non-combat support, though we've sent training, we've sent money, some very good New Zealand organisations doing philanthropy and charity separate of the government. And we have also had a change in status for Ukrainians seeking to flee the war and seek safe harbour here in New Zealand. But the challenges of getting out of a war zone, if you're trying to get your kids, your family out of the war zone, they don't end when you get out. You've then got to rebuild or create a self-sustainable life in a foreign land, and literally, in the case of Ukraine, half a world away. You might, if you're an employer, or indeed any New Zealander, you might be able to help. To find out how, we are joined by Kate Turska from Mahi for Ukraine. Kate, how are you? Nice to talk to you again.
Good morning, Sean. I'm good, thank you.
All right. I see you have basically issued a plea for New Zealanders and maybe New Zealand businesses to help those who have fled Ukraine to come to New Zealand. How can they help? What is it that you're asking for?
Yes, we did indeed. So obviously, as you mentioned, as you know, Ukrainians have arrived in New Zealand on the special Ukraine visa. A few of them have. And most recently, which we actually helped establish and advocated for improving. And we've also advocated for establishing a residency pathway for Ukrainians, which was announced last month, and that will be open in March next year. Now, that's all great and well. However, as you know, and as you may remember from our previous discussions, the special Ukraine visa did not come with any wraparound support. So essentially all it is just a visa, a license to live.
Yeah.
And Ukrainians are desperate for socialization programs, for ability to reestablish their lives. You must understand that none of them were planning, migrating, preparing to live overseas, etc. So when they come here, they're in a different position to those who intentionally moved away from their countries.
It's not standard, if like planned migration, is it? It is comes as a result of crisis and necessity.
Exactly. And not only that, we have varied degrees, obviously, we have different demographics, different ages, different experiences, but also varied degrees of language ability, because, again, these people were not planning to go and live in an English-speaking country, and therefore their language proficiency may not be entirely there. And normally when people come into such circumstances, humanitarian intakes, refugees, they would go through a whole orientation program. They would receive orientation, employment assistance, various other things that will enable them to settle in a country, whereas New Zealand government was reluctant to provide such assistance.
Okay.
And while Mahi for Ukraine, we were actually the only organization in New Zealand advocating or doing anything at all in supporting the Ukrainians in New Zealand. Yes, there are many organizations, individuals, and initiatives here, both of Ukrainian and Kiwi origin, that are focused on helping Ukraine and Ukrainians in Ukraine, but they're not that focused on newly arrived Ukrainians.
All right. So what can New Zealanders do to fill those gaps? And I suppose the most obvious one is give people jobs.
Absolutely. So we've partnered with Red Cross New Zealand, who actually funds funding outside of government and funded this program themselves to establish pathways to employment for Ukraine. And it's a great initiative that's aimed at providing displaced Ukrainians with opportunities for employment, support, guidance through the process and chance to rebuild their lives. But it will not go far without support of the Kiwi business. And it can't function effectively. The businesses need to be willing to provide chances and opportunity to those who have no local experience, probably struggling with the language.
Yeah. Okay, I hear that. Kate, have you approached groups like Business New Zealand, Manufacturers Association? Have you reached out to the organisations that represent businesses in New Zealand?
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have the campaign where we reach out to various associations, various organizations, etc., to establish some kind of working relationship. And we put out this first call and said, look, if you're a business, if you're an employer, look around, especially if you have low-skilled jobs. Obviously, these individuals have various talents and potential experience and degrees, but even low-skilled opportunities are not beneath them. And many of them would gladly accept something as long as they get their own. It means they can regain dignity. It means they have some sort of control of their life. They can earn something that contribute to the family that is taking them in. So we've asked, look, come and reach out to Red Cross. So Red Cross Specialist Employment will support them through, they will interpret, they will support them through the employment process. They'll help in many other ways, but you just need to give this individual a chance.
All right.
And so far what we've seen is the reluctancy in a lot of businesses.
Yeah. Kate, it's not a huge problem either. How many people are we talking about here?
Well, there's 350 people or so that are currently in New Zealand, and there may be more coming in the coming months. But out of them, you have children, you have elderly who may not be. So, on average, you may have 100 or 2 that are looking to get employed.
Yeah.
And at the moment, within the program, we have 50 involved who are actively seeking. So some may have already found jobs. So 50
to 150 people looking for a job in a time when unemployment is low. I got to say, there's got to be a solution out there. If someone is listening today and they want to help, if they've got an idea of how they can help, you got a Facebook page or somewhere they can contact you, Kate?
Definitely. So we have both LinkedIn and Facebook page. It's called Mahi for Ukraine. They're easy to find. And obviously Red Cross, they have all their contacts on their side. If you just touch base with them and say you want to chat to the Ukraine division, they'll be able to put you in touch with the right people.